This is my personal natural disaster plan, and I'm Nadia Searle. I will be presenting. The most common natural disaster that happens here where I am in Shelley, Idaho, would have to be flooding and storms. There are a lot of windstorms as well. We have a team. I am on the borderline of Bonneville and Bingham County, and Bonneville County has an emergency operations center. My mom is on this team, and they define and oversee the procedures that will happen in case there is some kind of disaster that happens. Some of the warning signals they will give would be like a citywide siren, a crawler message on the TV. So if you're watching a program, it will interrupt with a siren noise and showing a message. If you're listening to the radio, there will have a siren noise on the radio with an emergency alert. And depending on the emergency, there will be a text message if that is an option that would be available. So a few things I would include in a 72-hour kit would be water, food, Band-Aid, gauze, rubbing alcohol, medical tape, flashlight, batteries, burn ointment in case there was a fire, and a blanket. And a change of clothes would also be nice to keep hygiene up. A few things that I would take from my home if I was to leave my home would be water, cash, identification, medication, and a phone. A phone a lot for personal information that I might need. This is around my house. These are some of the things that can happen with, especially with farming. With drought, you won't yield any crop. You can have the reverse side where you have flooding, where it will sit on the ground, the water will sit, and the potatoes will rot inside the ground. With the grain and barley, it's not as much of an issue, except for when you're getting ready to harvest, because if it rains and you're getting ready to harvest, the grain can possibly resprout, which you don't want to happen. Diseases can come in the food if you don't rotate your crops. The ground has nutrients that it gives to the plant, and if you're abusing the ground and just taking the nutrients, it can start diseases. So those can happen. On the other side, here is the field right by my house. You can also have hailstorms, which knock out the grain from the grain stem. There will be these little beads, and that's the grain. And if those all get knocked out from the grain onto the ground, there's no way to harvest it and collect it. With potatoes, if the hail hits the plant, it damages the plant, and the plant will focus all its efforts into putting the nutrients into the plant instead of into the potato. So the potato will lose nutrients. Here is a layout of my home. This is technically the front, but most often we'll come through the back because we park in the garage, and then we'll walk up to the deck and come into this door. So here's the other door over here, and here's the door we'll come in through the garage. So there are those three doors that would be a potential exit in the case of a hazard. I also located some of the windows. There's one here, two in the kitchen, one in the laundry, and the one in the living room. Those ones don't open, so those wouldn't be helpful. But then you can go and you can walk downstairs. Also, here's the source to turn off the electric by the steps. So what it is you walk through the hall. Here's a wall right here, and then you walk and then you go downstairs. And here there's two small windows in the storage units and in the basement, but those aren't big enough to fit people. It's an older home. I assume it's different in newer homes. There's the window for the bedroom and bathroom down here. But other than that, the best bet is to walk back up the stairs and go through the garage, which would be right here. So those would be my plans. I would probably head over to the assigned spot that we have by the spud cellar, which is a bit further away from our house. That might be a place we might want to avoid, though, if in the case of a fire, because there are gas lines and things that are going on out there. So another place that we have to meet is by the exit. We live about half a mile off the freeway, so that can be a designated spot where we can meet in the case of an emergency. Some other things that we see going on around us, these are some extras. This is outside my house. Like I said, we have terrible windstorms here in Idaho. So this is actually a tree that blew over. It was originally right here, about right here, and we trimmed it down because it had just fallen over during the windstorm with this big crash. And you can see this one's probably about ready to fall over if there's another windstorm. But we trimmed it down, so that's one of the things that can happen there. I was out on a hike, and this was some of the erosion that happened and exposing the roots. So those are things that you have to be cautious of. I also thought I'd include a few things from trips to Yellowstone by a friend and by personal trips that I've taken where we've taken photos. Although Yellowstone isn't the greatest natural disaster risk right now, if it was to go off, it would instantly kill all of us. So I just thought I'd include pictures of that in here. And you can take time to look at them as well. You're on there. And that is Old Faithful. So thank you for listening to my presentation.